Hi, I thought I would talk about Clarkson's Farm season 2. Just finished watching it last night. Very entertaining, very enjoyable. I'm going to say right up front, great big Jeremy Clarkson fan here. I love the guy. I think he's brilliant. I love the fact that he doesn't give a shit about anything, and I'm disappointed that he's been apologising for his recent comments about Meghan Markle, who I would imagine pretty much almost everybody agreed with completely, and also realised that it was satire. He didn't actually literally mean what he said, but whatever. Anyway, that's not about that video. This is about his farm, and really about how this is yet more evidence that the government, whether it's central government or local government, hate you. They hate you. They are not there to serve you, even though, we sort of go along with this sort of nudge, nudge, wink, wink, yeah. But we know that they hate us. We know that they see us as numbers, as commodities, and the sort of people on this show yesterday, the West Oxfordshire District Council, sum it up absolutely perfectly. You just have to look at them and they weren't quite bullied enough when they were at school, because they didn't get their weird behaviour corrected. Some of them might say that they probably were bullied, and this is them now enacting some sort of revenge against people that they would perceive as bullies. And I'm absolutely certain that at some stage Jeremy Clarkson did flush someone's head down the toilet at school. Probably lots of people. We know he's oafish. We know he's a buffoon, and and he's a loudmouth and a braggart and all of that. Guilty as charged, but incredibly successful. And they hate that because they know their only way to power is through institutions, and by weaseling their way into a position where they can make decisions that ruin people's lives. And they will go home and beat off about it, because that's just the absolute turn on. That's what they're after. I mean, we've got it everywhere. Like every single time that you have to come into sort of any form of negotiation with a government authority, you know that they've got your pants pulled down, and they are going to roger you they're going to go in dry. They're not going to lube up at all. I mean, I've got examples here a couple of times in my life when I've had extensions built, and it's just preposterous. The house I own now is small. It's a small house. It's built in the noughties, probably around about 2008 or something like that. It was built, maybe. Anyway, roughly around there. It doesn't really matter. And what you see is with the councils, the developers, the planners, over the decades, you can tell when you're driving through a housing estate, not just because of the style of the houses, but you can tell when it was built by the size of the driveways or the garages or the gardens. They just keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller, because that way they can make a bit of extra profit, because they can say, there you go, there's a 3-bedroom house with parking for 2 cars. Now, it isn't parking for 2 cars. So the house I have now, it had a separate garage, a detached garage, or garage, whatever you want to say. And it wasn't big enough to get a big car in. You could get a smallish car in there, but then you couldn't get out of the car because it just wasn't big enough, the garage. So it's not fit for purpose, but it's like it fits a quota. They can say, there you go, that's a garage, etc., etc. We extended the house, we knocked into the garage, and in order to do so, I had to show that I was going to retain 2 parking spaces. So what we ended up doing was making the driveway this much bigger. And then that's using their measurements. So you kind of sometimes you have to play their game that they play. Oh, that's the size of an average car, is it? That's big enough that garage is big enough for a car. Then I'll make my driveway just a little bit bigger than that, and it's space for 2. And I got my extension done, whatever. But you will have similar stories, I'm sure. Many of you watching this, or the few of you that watch this. But in this town council meeting, so for those that don't know, a very, very brief roundup of the situation. Clarkson's got this great big farm that he's owned for a long time, but he had a manager to run it for him, and he just owned the farm. He carried on being a busy boy, making absolutely amazing television shows. And but you know, the guy retired, and he decided obviously there's an opportunity here for a project with Amazon. I know Clarkson would be getting paid an awful lot of money for this. You know, I'm not. This isn't me like saying, "Oh, poor old Clarkson." You know, the guy is going to be fine. He's fine, but he's highlighting here how insane our institutions are. So anyway, he's every single opportunity for bureaucrats to hamstring a farmer from being able to do what a farmer should do. A farmer should utilise their land to grow as many good quality crops, vegetables, cereals, or have livestock on there for dairy, for meat, whatever, to maximise that. But at every single stage, there's some red tape, there's some bloody bureaucrat licking his pencil going, "I'm afraid you're not allowed to do that. No, you can't do that. I'm afraid that pile of dirt has to be 1 inch smaller," and you know, and it's just, they just get in the way. Yes, I understand that there is some necessity for institutions. There is a necessity for a planning department, because you know, you buy a house, and then all of a sudden the guy that lives the house at, say, the bottom of your garden just makes his house 4 stories high and completely blocks out all the sun from your garden, you know, and that's not on. So you do need to have some planning. This isn't me being an anarchist. This is just me, you know, moving that way. Definitely in the libertarian sphere of things, less and less and less government is what we need, not more. But so at every stage they're getting in his way. He wanted to set up a local restaurant where every single ingredient, I doubt that's actually possible, would be coming from that farm. It isn't possible. I've worked in restaurants all my life. You know, I've seen how people claim that, but you just can't do it. But you know, all the meat, the dairy, the vegetables, all coming from the farm. The flour to make, you know, the bread and the pasta, grown on the farm. And also, he was able to reach out to local farmers in his area that are all really struggling a lot more than him, because they're not independently wealthy. And you had a dairy farmer who, this poor woman, you know, the price of everything for her is just going up and up and up, and they just don't even take a salary. They just work, and they just barely survive and keep the farm open. There's other farmers there. They've got pigs, but also they grow cereals, and they're having to buy in cereals because I can't explain why. But if you watch the series, you'll get to understand what they're going through, these people. Yet, so this brilliant idea of setting up this local restaurant in a building that already exists was a great idea. It was going to help other people out, and and a way to use up produce that they're making. You know, it's a win-win. No, council have to stop that. Do every single thing they can. Oh, you've got to change the colour of the roof. You've got to change this. You've got to change that. Bunch of wankers. I hate them. I hate these people on a cellular level. I wish they could be stripped naked and paraded through every town in the country whilst the people throw excrement at them. To quote Jeremy Clarkson, they are despicable people, and they hate you, every single one of you. And at some stage... Oh, so anyway, the end of the story with the restaurant is they found another property, a disused barn and a crumbling old barn that they were able to renovate because it was already his, and they didn't have to go through the planning process for it. But the council still made it as difficult as possible for them. But they somehow managed to get an experience where people could come along and eat this food. And it looked great. I recognised the chef. I think she was on Great British Menu a few times or in the past. Pip, her name was really bloody good. Anyway, so, you know, some satisfaction at the end of it. But you're just left with this disillusionment, apathy, you know, almost nihilism. What is the point anymore? If no matter what you do, they have the power. They can, out of just pure spite, and I say, when you look at these people, they are not good people. They're not like attractive people. And I'm not having to go at people that aren't, beautiful like me, but I am having a go at. I'm just pointing out that these people are obviously, they're just full of hate. They got nothing going for them other than this one little bit of control. They're the traffic warden that just waits because he knows it's about to tick over to the second that he can put that ticket on your car. These people, they are despicable, and they really, really get far more than they deserve. What they deserve is to be in the bottom rung and actually taught a lesson in humility and perhaps apply themselves and achieve something like Clarkson's done. So I'm just going to say about why I like Clarkson so much is I think he's a comedic genius. He does, obviously he's not portrayed as a comedian, but his comedic timing is epic, and he knows it. Actually, I'll put May and Hammond in there as well. They really know what they're doing. You know when you're watching the show and they're like looking here, eating an ice cream or something like that as their car falls off a cliff behind them. It's obviously staged. We know it's staged. They know that we know it's staged, but we still love them for it. It's absolutely brilliant. Anyway, and a career of understanding what people want, where you go from, a television program about cars where this new Vauxhall Allegra that's coming out, the fuel economy is this and that. People weren't interested in that. Most people want to see the latest supercar, the latest hypercar. They want to see if the Ferrari is faster than the Lamborghini or the Jaguar or the Aston Martin or whatever. That's what they want to see. They want to see flames coming out of exhaust. They want to hear engines absolutely ripping. And they also then developed their more special events, where they would tour through a country in whatever car, and all the comedy gold that they would produce watching it. Anyway, so long live Clarkson's Farm. I know that all the footage has been filmed for season 3. I just think Amazon was just saying to Clarkson, let's just keep a low profile for a little while until all this hate goes over, and then we can put series 3 together and hopefully series 4. I hope it goes on forever because it's organically produced some real characters, some real stars. I can't remember the names. There's Caleb, who's the young lad that's the farmer. You got the old boy there, the guy in his 70s with his earring in, and he's still got his 80s mullet, and you don't understand a word he's saying, and he makes dry walls, but just salt of the earth, wonderful, wonderful people. I wish them all the success, and if you haven't seen Clarkson's Farm 2, check it out. And to wind up this unscripted, long winding video here, I'm guilty of this as well. I don't know who my councillors are, but I think we all should. I think we should all make an effort to find out who is in your local council, the decisions they make that hurt people and hurt businesses, and be able to, you see them in the high street, you see them in public, tell them. Don't have to be in their face. You don't have to be aggressive. You don't have to be threatening in any way. You just say, that is disgusting what you've done. Do you realise how many people you've hurt? I think you're appalling, and the next opportunity I get to vote against you, I will. Like that. Because they need to feel it. At the moment, they feel untouched because we are disaffected, because we're apathetic, because we're disillusioned, because we go, what's the point? Everybody knows that there's nothing we can do about it, blah, blah, blah. And that might be the only thing that we can do, is confront them and let them know. And go to their meetings in numbers and be loud. And I'm saying all this, and I'm probably not going to do that either. So I'm an absolute hypocrite. Let me know in the comments. Anyway, very nice to speak to you all again. I hope you're all doing okay. Stay sane.